Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Hakem, and we are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. We have some viewer comments we're going to get to. We have quite a few updates, which will be difficult to segue in between, but we're going to get to those. Then to the LA riots, then to a special visit yesterday in Albany by one Elise Stefanik. What it all means, we'll be talking about it on this morning's broadcast. Let's go to viewer comments, shall we? Viewer comments brought to you by Steuben Senior Services, empowering seniors to age at home. Mark writes in, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. RFK Jr. outs the entire CDC vaccine committee. And Democrats want ICE to unmask, and the ICE department leaders say it will put ICE officers and their families at risk. Thank you, Mark. We are going to talk about both those stories later on in the program. Comment from a different viewer. You know, Frank, the recent events surrounding the agro-terrorist arrest have led me to speculate that perhaps the Chinese had also played a role in attempting to diminish our egg production. I wonder. Interesting. There is an update on that. There has been another Chinese scientist, this Chinese scientist from a name that you may recall, from Wuhan, has been charged with smuggling illegal biological material into the U.S. From Wuhan, folks, and then lied to the feds about the secretive scheme. Cheng Hu-han was arrested on Sunday after landing at the Detroit Metropolitan Airport on a flight from Shanghai, according to the charging documents. She was charged with smuggling goods into the U.S. and making false statements. Han is the third Chinese scientist to be charged with smuggling illegal biological materials into Michigan in recent weeks. We brought to you the story last week of Jin and her boyfriend Lu, who were caught last year allegedly trying to smuggle samples of a dangerous crop-killing fungus that some have called agro-terrorism. It's also important to know that Jean is a Communist Party loyalist and lab researcher at the University of Michigan who received Chinese government funding for her work. They were charged last week in a ploy the national security insiders called, quote, an attack on U.S. food supply. So taking a step back, the Chinese scientist that was arrested on Sunday, Han, upon Han's arrival to the U.S., border officers discovered Han sent 4 packages that contained biological material related to roundworm from China. The packages, which were sent in both 2024 and 2025, were addressed to individuals associated with a laboratory at the University of Michigan. However, Han lied to officers and said she didn't send packages to members of the Michigan lab. She also claimed the packages contained plastic cups rather than petri dishes. When the FBI and Homeland Security investigators grilled Han, she admitted to shipping the biological material to the lab from her research as a PhD student from the College of Life Science and Technology in the Huzhong University of Science and Technology in, where else, Wuhan, according to court documents. Investigators also discovered that Han deleted the content of her electric device 3 days before she landed in the U.S. Special agent in charge of the FBI Detroit field office said the alleged smuggling of biological materials by Cheng Han is a direct threat to public safety and national security, and it severely compromises the integrity of our nation's research institutions. Adding, I applaud the relentless effort of the FBI Detroit Counterintelligence Task Force, working in close coordination with U.S. Customs and Border Protection Offices of Field Operation and ICE Homeland Security Investigations Detroit. The FBI in Michigan will aggressively pursue anyone who seeks to harm our country and will deploy every available resource to defend the United States and protect our communities. Han was denied a visa to travel to the U.S. on 2 separate occasions in March. In one of her attempts to obtain a visa, Han, quote, could not clearly answer basic questions about herself or her research. An offer letter from the University of Michigan stated that Han was invited to be a visiting scholar at the lab. Now, Wuhan is the central Chinese city where COVID-19 emerged before it spread into a global pandemic. So another scary update. That's the third Chinese scientist to be arrested in just a few weeks. Again, signaling that real serious threat from China. We also have the purchasing of land by the Chinese government around our military bases. The list can go on and on. But thank you to the viewer that highlighted that, gave me an opportunity to start the program with that. I did want to mention, on a sad note, then we actually have an update from the super mayor. Yeah, I know it's been a while. But on a sad note, Sly Stone, the front man of the hugely influential Sly and the Family Stone, has passed away. He was 82 years old. Now, if you know the struggles he had been living with essentially his whole life, it's surprising in many ways that he made it to the age of 82. His family releasing a statement saying, "It is with profound sadness that we announce the passing of our beloved dad, Sly Stone of Sly and the Family Stone. After a prolonged battle with chronic obstruction pulmonary disease and other underlying health issues, Sly passed away peacefully, surrounded by his 3 children, his closest friend, and his extended family." Now, there was a time when Sly was living in a camper. I mean, if you look at who he influenced, an amazing career for a very kind of short amount of time, but revolutionizing the sound at the time. His family continued, "While we mourn his absence, we take solace in knowing that his extraordinary musical legacy will continue to resonate and inspire for generations to come." Sly was a monumental figure, a groundbreaking innovator, and a true pioneer who redefined the landscape of pop, funk, and rock music. His iconic songs have left an indelible mark on the world, and his influence remains undeniable. So Sly Stone passing away at the age of 82. Okay, now let's take a look. Yes, I'm moving quickly this morning. That's the kind of broadcast we are going to have. It's not going to be all about the LA riots, but there is a lot to cover. With Gavin Newsom finally weighing in, Karen Bass with what she's saying. We're going to get to all of that just a little bit later on in the program. And it is an important update from Albany. Not anything declared, but Elise Stefanik raising some eyebrows, if you will, as she visited Albany and gave a press conference. We're going to hear from Will Barclay. He had a statement before he introduced Elise Stefanik, and then I'll have some quotes from Stefanik's presser yesterday. But now, if you're new to this program, you're probably wondering why I'm bringing up a former mayor from Illinois. Well, the super mayor, Tiffany Henyard, is a prime example of why you need to know who you're voting for. And I thought this is such an appropriate time as we near primary day. Primary day early voting begins June 14th. But actual primary day is the 24th, which I know gets complicated because with the school budgets, you're essentially being asked to vote 3 times in about a month. But the primary, it's important to study who you'll be voting for. We've had so many of the candidates on this program. That's a goal of ours. And we point to someone like Tiffany Henyard because she's a prime example of people going in, pulling the lever, not knowing what they'd vote for, and leading to quite a bit of disaster for her town. A Chicago suburb former Democratic super mayor is facing yet another legal hurdle after failing to produce public records from her time in office after being held in contempt of the court earlier this month. In a hearing that happened on Friday, Tiffany Henyard's attorney, Beau Bridley, pleaded the Fifth on his client's behalf after she was ordered to hand over public records from her time in office. Quote, "The smear campaign against Tiffany Henyard, which began while she was in office, continues even now that she is out of office," said a statement released by her lawyer, which is she's always played the victim. Bridley conceded that the former mayor does not have the requested documents, with an Illinois judge allowing Henyard's legal team to submit an affidavit in its place. Quote, "The mayor has no document that the plaintiff seeks. This matter is going to be resolved with a simple affidavit. The whole hearing was much ado about nothing." This stems from a lawsuit filed by Edgar County Watchdogs, Inc. after the organization sued Henyard and the village of Dolton for failing to produce financial records after the documents were requested under the Freedom of Information Act. Now, if you look at the finances at the time, there was an investigation, a lot of money being spent. They went from being up to being down very, very quickly. When originally it was voted on while she was mayor for there to be an audit, she vetoed that vote, which is normally a red flag. The Edgar County Watchdogs released a statement saying, "We had little doubt Ms. Henyard would use losing the election as an excuse not to produce the documents." Invoking the Fifth Amendment for a criminal investigation was an added wrinkle. The watchdogs will keep looking for the documents, even if the voters might have inadvertently thrown out the documents with the mayor. Now, the embattled former mayor was unseated after losing her re-election bid to Jason House, who was sworn in last month. Henyard was also defeated by Illinois State Senator Napoleon Harris in her attempt to keep her seat as Thornton Township Supervisor. If you remember the time when she was mayor, she used taxpayer funds to put up posters all around the town to praise her. Some equating it to kind of like a North Korea type atmosphere. She was thrust onto the national spotlight back in 2024 in April after officials at Dolton Village Hall were served subpoenas from the FBI following a corruption investigation. Henyard, however, was not charged with a crime. Then they had that investigation done by former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. The investigation reportedly revealed the village's fund fell from its initial $5.6 million balance to a $3.6 million deficit, with the local government credit cards accumulating a whopping $799,000 balance. Then, of course, during the primary, you had Henyard's boyfriend getting in a fight at that one town hall meeting. But just a quick example, because it's been a while since we heard from her, quick example of why you need to know who you're voting for. Now, when we come back, two other quick updates, then right into the LA riots. We're also going to talk about, like I said, New York State issues. A couple things here, if you want to, we can discuss about Trump in general. I see that these protests have brought Elon Musk a little bit closer to being back in the fold. We may talk about that as well. So stay with us. Your comments as we continue. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Your water is delicious.
I know, right? It's this Culligan Smart drinking water system.
What do you think is going on in there?
I'm smelling a touch of chlorine.
Yeah, I'm detecting some PFAS.
I'm also getting notes of lead.
Perfection.
Sending it up.
Here we go.
Certified to reduce more than 70 contaminants. It's like having your own team of water experts. See the smart difference at Culligan.com.
I'm Mary Crawford. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
What better start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub? Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street, and quoting a couple of comments from viewers as we go to our Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program where we read viewer comments. First up, good morning. Well, morning. Regarding the super mayor, Is the taxpayer covering her legal expenses? That's a great question. I understand she's being fined $1,000 a day until they get that, for being held in contempt of court, until they get those documents or provide that affidavit. I have not seen that. I did a quick cursory viewing online to see if I could find anything. I saw nothing. I believe this is out of pocket for her. I believe, but don't hold me to that. A comment from a different viewer saying that the towns around Keuka Lake are flooded pretty badly. Thank you for sending the pictures in. I'll try to put those up later on in the program. It's kind of difficult the way it works, the program live. But yes, they do. Wow, the pictures do look bad. Releasing a statement from Steuben County. Steuben County reports that due to excessive rainfall, multiple state, county, and local roads are impassable, including County Route 10, 15, 119, 76, 87, 88, 89, 30, SR 36, 54, 248. First responders and highway crews are assessing damages and responding to various emergency calls. Steuben County is strongly advising that residents avoid all non-essential travel. Help us keep the roads clear for responders to operate. Call 911 only for emergencies. Report wire calls to your local utility. Turn around. Don't drown. Thank you very much for those. And yes, please keep those photos coming in. Try to do my best to show them later on. As Mark had mentioned, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said that he is removing all 17 members of the CDC's Vaccine Advisory Committee. This was announced yesterday. 17 sitting members of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Vaccine Advisory Committee, and he is going to replace them, of course, with new members. Today, we are prioritizing the restoration of public trust above any specific pro- or anti-vaccine agenda, said Kennedy in a statement. The public must know that unbiased science, evaluated through a transparent process and insulated from conflicts of interest, guides the recommendations of our health agencies. HHS said the Biden administration appointed all 17 sitting ACIP members, with 13 of those appointments occurring in 2024. The appointments meant the Trump administration would have to wait until 2028 before choosing a majority of committee members. Kennedy said replacing the committee members would help restore public trust, saying, quote, a clean sweep is necessary to reestablish public confidence in vaccine science. ACIP new members will prioritize public health and evidence-based medicine. The committee will no longer function as a rubber stamp for industry profit-taking agendas. So there's a big update from yesterday. And we had mentioned the selfie yacht. Israeli forces seized that yacht with Greta Thunberg that was bound for Gaza. We mentioned that it was seized. There's more about taking photos. There wasn't really a lot of supplies, what they say, about a half a truckload that would have been delivered to Gaza. But why I mentioned this is a viewer had said it yesterday, and I think I had an opportunity to mention it, but I wanted to reiterate. After they went on the boat, the forces, the Israeli government, carried a meager cargo of goods. They had the yacht goers, the Greta Thunberg and her friends and maybe family, watch October 7th massacre footage. Before it was boarded, they were given a final opportunity to change course, both by the Foreign Ministry and the Navy, but again refused. The Gaza Maritime Zone remains an active conflict area. Hamas had previously exploited sea routes for terrorist attacks, including the October 7th massacre, said the Foreign Minister. Fortunately for Thunberg and her crew, they were not treated the way Hamas handled its hostages. Instead, the Israeli government released video of the detainees in good spirits as they chowed down on pastrami sandwiches. Their spirits might have dimmed a bit after Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz ordered the detainees to screen a 43-minute video documenting the massacre and mutilations performed by Hamas during the October 7, 2023 attack on Israeli civilians. Quote, it's appropriate that Greta, the anti-Semite, and her Hamas-supporting friends should see exactly who is the terror group Hamas and what they support and act on behalf of. What atrocious acts they carried out on women, the elderly, and kids, and who Israel is fighting for its defense against, said Katz. Katz was even more harshly critical of the stunt, saying it is a hate flotilla and Hamas's propaganda. So there's a quick update. All right. So Trump ordered the Defense Department to send an additional 2,000 National Guard troops. Man, the media is very interesting this. We talked about it yesterday, calling it peaceful protests, largely peaceful protests, right? That's what Karen Bass, I believe, called it. I know was it Maxine Waters? Called it largely peaceful. Now they've got the media has a new term for it, basically saying it's only an isolated, in a small part of LA. That's the media's newest refrain to minimize the violent mobs. But if you've seen the video with the fireworks going off, now, of course, there's looting. So Trump has ordered 2,000 National Guard troops, an additional, I should say, 2,000 National Guard troops to Los Angeles. This happening yesterday with a new group. More than 4,000 Guard troops would be stationed in the California city. It's unclear how many federal, state, and local authorities have been sent to tackle the protests. But on Monday, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth announced that 700 active duty Marines would also be dispatched. Meanwhile, California Governor Gavin Newsom also said he is working to surge over 800 additional state and local law enforcement officers to ensure the safety of our LA community. Now, the additional 2,000 National Guard troops likely won't begin movement towards California for another day or two as the order is finalized, according to an official that spoke to the Associated Press. As of Sunday, around 2,000 protesters were estimated to be participating in the demonstrations. At least 56 people were arrested over the weekend. Now, Gavin Newsom going on social media saying the first 2,000 give no food or water, only approximately 300 are deployed. The rest are sitting unused in federal buildings without orders. This isn't about public safety. It's about stroking a dangerous president's ego. This is reckless, pointless, and disrespectful to our troops. Well, would you rather be out there in LA or inside the prisons in New York? Let me ask that question to the National Guard. LA Mayor Karen Bass, who was on vacation during the wildfires, echoed Newsom's sentiment as she accused the Trump administration of purposely creating disorder and chaos. I feel like we are part of an experiment that we did not ask to be a part of, said Bass. I hope that we will be heard because our city is trying to move forward, and I believe the federal government should be supportive. Okay. Now, there is a lot to dissect here and cover. I think it's interesting the 700 Marines that are going to be deployed, like I mentioned. That's according to Pete Hegseth. The riots have descended, if you will, into looting. We do see some, for lack of a better term, copycat protests in New York City. But the violent anti-immigration enforcement riots that have engulfed L.A., there are now videos showing mobs of looters pillaging Foot Locker and T-Mobile stores under cover of darkness late Sunday night. Disturbing footage of the chaos shows criminals, many wearing masks, smashing plate glass windows at the South Broadway cell phone store and disappearing inside before emerging with arms full of merchandise and fleeing into the night. Another man sprints out of the destroyed front door carrying a giant promotional teddy bear. Many T-Mobile locations keep on display, causing onlookers to break out in laughter. The havoc spills out onto the streets. One man is seen emptying a fire extinguisher into the air in a huge white chemical cloud as a line of cars waits at a nearby intersection. Once the crowd dispersed, the videographer pointed their lens on the interior of the store, which had been virtually picked clean. The lawlessness took place in the midst of a spree of violence that has turned the City of Angels into a war zone for 3 days and counting, resulting in dozens of arrests, several injured law enforcement officers, and so far unknown amount of damage caused to property. The cost for this is going to be phenomenal. If you look at the vehicles that have been destroyed, cinder blocks being thrown at police officers' vehicles off of bridges, which Pam Bondi is now identified that person. They're searching for that person, specifically throwing the cinder blocks. We'll talk about that just a moment. But Karen Bass, the LA mayor, getting criticism for saying that the city is peaceful now. So after blaming ICE officers and after blaming Trump, she went on to say that now it's peaceful. We're going to tell you about that. We also have some opinion pieces on this I think you're going to find very interesting. But hey, keep your comments coming in. Those are the opinions I find interesting. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
In today's world, securing your Your business is more important than ever, protected with Boss Security's state-of-the-art alarm systems. When seconds matter, trust the experts. Boss Security is proud to safeguard local businesses across the Twin Tiers. Contact Boss Security today.
Scammers is a huge problem today. Worldwide, seniors lost $4.8 billion to scammers in 2024. The Steuben County Office for the Aging is here to help. Come to our seminar, Recognizing and Avoiding Financial Scams and Identifying Elder Abuse, Monday, June 18th at the Centenary United Methodist Church in Bath from 1:30 to 4 p.m. Learn how to identify scams, how to protect yourself, and fraud watch tips. Come to Centenary United Methodist Church in Bath, New York from 1:30 to 4 p.m. on June 18th. Learn more. Go to steubencountyny.gov/235.
Gift for a grad, for your dad, or yourself? This month, GCP has incredible savings on Jim Beam Bourbon and Jim Beam flavors. A 1-liter bottle, normally $19.99, is just $17.99. With $4 mail-in rebate, your final cost is $13.99. 750 milliliter La Marca Prosecco, normally $17.99, is now on sale for $14.99. Perfect for celebrating any occasion. GCP Discount Liquors and Wines and Horseheads, the best in service, selection, and price.
Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. News on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program, where we read viewer comments. First up, a viewer sending in an article, and thank you for that. We can't read the whole article, but I have examples of it, which is some of these quote-unquote protesters, rioters being bussed into L.A., also in New York as well, with the sort of copycat protests. So thank you for sending that along. And also a nice message. Hi, Frank. Well, hi. With an emoji. I appreciate that. Thank you. So Karen Bass said that LA is peaceful now. I just have to say, if you dial back time and go to Friday, if immigration raids had not happened here, we would not have the disorder that went on last night. It is peaceful now, but we do not know where and when the next raids will be. That is a concern because people in the city have a rapid response network. If they see ICE, they go out and they protest. I thought J.D. Vance had a really good point on what Karen Bass had to say. The vice president tweeting out, people who were already violating the law are only violating the law because President Trump started enforcing the law. This is the logic of Newsom and his stooges. Carolyn Levitt saying, newsflash, Karen, there are immigration raids happening because Joe Biden allowed illegal alien criminals into LA, and you have dangerous sanctuary city policies that protect them. Since you and Governor Newsom refuse to maintain law and order, President Trump will. Kristi Noem blasted Karen Bass yesterday, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, defending federal law enforcement efforts to arrest the worst of the worst criminal illegal immigrants. She accused Bass and Gavin Newsom of doing, quote, absolutely nothing to protect citizens from criminal migrants in L.A. Gavin Newsom has done absolutely nothing. Mayor Bass has done absolutely nothing. She is a train wreck of a mayor, accusing the mayor of endorsing criminal activities and allowing L.A. to be completely devastated with crime. Now she's holding press conferences talking about the fact that people have the right to peacefully protest and that they're a city of immigrants. Well, they're not a city of immigrants. They're a city of criminals because she has protected them for so many years. Now, Trump said his border czar should arrest Gavin Newsom. Now, if you watch the clip, you could see the media's head explode in real time. So it should come as no surprise that is the kind of fear-mongering coverage and Gavin Newsom is playing right along with it, suggesting that Trump is becoming authoritarian. Now, Newsom had said, come after me, arrest me. Let's just get it over with, tough guy. You know, I don't give a darn, but I care about my community. I care about the community. The heck are they doing? These guys need to grow up. They need to stop, and we need to push back. And I'm sorry to be so clear, but that kind of bloviating is exhausting. So, Tom, arrest me. Let's go. That's in reference, of course, to Tom Homan. So Trump was asked by a reporter, Gavin Newsom, is he daring Tom Homan to come and arrest him? Should he do it? Asked Peter Doocy from Fox. Trump saying, and I quote, I would do it if I was Tom. I think it's great. Gavin likes the publicity, but I think it would be a great thing. He's done a terrible job. Look, I like Gavin Newsom. He's a nice guy, but he's grossly incompetent. Everybody knows. All you have to do is look at the little railroad he's building. It's about 100 times over budget. We're putting a flagpole over there under budget. I always do under budget. And I think if you point to the wildfires, some have suggested, too, that these riots in the street, again, discrediting Newsom from running for president. We know that he wants to run for president. He was campaigning even when Biden was still running for president. So we know that is in his future, or at least he hopes it's in his future. But when you add the wildfires and the riots together, does he stand a chance nationwide? But Gavin Newsom saying Trump is unhinged and speaking like an authoritarian. It's just an extraordinary moment, said the governor. And I don't want to overstate it, but these are the words of an authoritarian. Whether he acts on it or not, the chill that creates is real, and it's a serious moment, very serious. And that's in reference to the quote-unquote threats that Trump made against him. Obviously, well, this goes back to the point the media likes to take Trump literally so they can use the scare tactics to show you how radical Trump has become, how authoritarian he has become. And if you look at Tom Homan being interviewed saying, well, no, there's nothing there to arrest him. You know, we're just having a conversation. But Newsom seeing the opportunity to make political hay while the sun shines, saying he, meaning Trump, is unhinged and he's acting recklessly. And the threat of the Marines coming in the United States, this is a very serious and sober moment. We're going to stand firm. There's maybe a second branch of government left in this country. We obviously lost the legislative branch to Trump and Trumpism. We pray that the courts are still holding firm. Now, again, this very much goes in line with when we talked in the past about Mr. Garcia and the politicians that stood up for him as he was in El Salvador. This is a losing battle, and we've got numerous examples of this, of the stance that the left and the media are taking with these riots. It's so cliche. We know that they're peaceful protests. Now the media is running with this idea that just small isolated areas in LA where it's happening. But many legal experts, because we know that Gavin Newsom sued the Trump administration, and you see that his final comment there, which was, we pray the court still stands strong. There's a couple of legal experts we'll get to when we come back that believe that this is a losing battle for Mr. Newsom. Actually, his political future even tarnished by this. So we'll talk about that when we come back. Stay with us. Reading your comments as well. I see a lot of comments coming in. Keep them coming in. We'll be right back.
Since 1983, Nissan has been assembling award-winning vehicles for you, right here in America. And we're committed to keeping our lineup affordable and free from new tariffs. That's why we've lowered MSRP on our best-selling Rogue and Pathfinder. So you can get the car you want, at the price you want, knowing Nissan is here for you at the Nissan Summer Sales Event.
Now get 0% APR financing for 60 months on the 2025 Nissan Rogue or Pathfinder.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC, or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
The Big Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
If you have one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live and proudly from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street, right in the heart of the Gafford District. Let's go to another section of the Steuben Senior Services Fund, part of our program. Steuben Senior Services empowering seniors to age at home. And their part of the program is when we read viewer comments. Let's get right to them. In Mark's opinion, these riots in L.A. would have never started if the Democrats didn't let an enormous amount of illegals in this country. Yes, and you go back to what Mayor Bass was saying, and like J.D. Vance said, so people here illegally start to do illegal things because they were arrested for doing illegal things, twisting themselves up into a pretzel. And that's why I have so many pieces here that we may save for the 7 o'clock hour, but saying that this is a losing battle. The Democrats and the media are picking the wrong side of so many things, whether it's Garcia in El Salvador, whether it's Harvard standing with anti-Semitism. We saw that the House voted down a resolution, the Democrats in the House, whereas I shouldn't have just jumped to that without having it right in front of me, and we're going to talk about it more in depth. But 113 House Democrats voted against a resolution that denounced the anti-Semitic terrorist attack in Colorado. So the list goes on and on. But I'll continue with other viewers. Another viewer writes in, Newsom and Bass have allowed a crown jewel of California, L.A., to be turned into a war zone, and they think it's a good thing. That's some sick stuff. Thank you very much. Tried to sound like Carson there. That's some sick stuff. And someone else writes in, another viewer writes in, we should have put a wall around L.A. Thank you. Another viewer writes in, China is behind the riots. We had a piece yesterday on the program that does show some Chinese influence in some of the protest groups that are there. There's other far-left groups as well, not just China, but yes, China, there was involvement there. I don't have that piece in front of me. We brought it to you on the program yesterday, so thank you. And finally, Ken writes in, I know this is off topic, but I have a question for one of your viewers. The Climate Change Friday contributor. Yes, Climate Facts with Bob. If Bob is listening, this message is sent to you from Ken. Ken says, how much pollution and carbon was put into the atmosphere by the recent California fires and is being put in the air by the current fires in Canada, especially in comparison to the pollution that the internal combustion engines create, which the climate change fanatics want to eliminate? And why aren't the climate change fanatics frantically mobilizing the world to rush to Canada and put those fires out, which are obviously dumping incredible amounts of pollution into the air and, like the internal combustion engine, must be an existential threat to the world? Great question, Ken. If Bob's watching this morning, you can save it for Friday, or you can give us an early update, or just ignore us altogether. Okay, so Newsom sues Trump. Many legal experts think he is likely to lose. Jonathan Turley writes that Newsom was in his element over the weekend. After scenes of burning cars and attacks on ICE personnel, Newsom declared that this was all an illegal act, an immoral act, an unconstitutional act. No, he was not speaking of the attacks on law enforcement or property. He's referring to President Trump's call to deploy the National Guard to protect federal officers. Newsom is planning to challenge the deployment as cities like Glendale are canceling contracts to house detainees and reaffirming that local police will not assist the federal government. Trump has the authority under Section 12406 of Title 10 of the U.S. Code to deploy the National Guard if the governor is, quote, unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States, end quote. The administration is saying that this is precisely what is unfolding in California, where mobs have attacked vehicles and trapped federal personnel. Most critics are challenging the deployment on policy grounds, arguing that it is an unnecessary escalation. However, even critics like Berkeley Law Dean Irwin has admitted that unfortunately President Trump likely has the legal authority to do this, end quote. There is a fair debate over whether this was needed at this time, but the president is allowed to reach a different conclusion. Trump wants the violence to end now as opposed to escalating like it did with Rodney King or with George Floyd. Courts will be asked to halt the order because it did not technically go through Newsom to formally call out the National Guard. But again, Trump has that right. Newsom is clearly refusing to issue the orders or coordinate the deployment. Even if such challenges are successful, Trump can clearly flood the zone with federal authority. Indeed, the obstruction could escalate the matter further, prompting Trump to consider using the Insurrection Act, which would allow troops to participate directly in civilian law enforcement. The Trump administration has already claimed that these riots constitute a form of rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States. In support of such a claim, the administration could cite many of the Democrat leaders now denouncing the claim. After January 6th, liberal politicians and professors insisted that the riot was an insurrection and claimed that Trump and dozens of Republicans could be removed from ballots under the 14th Amendment. Liberal professors insisted that Trump's use of the word fight on January 6th and his questioning of the results of the election did qualify as an insurrection. Democrats are using his order to deflect from their own escalation of the tensions over the past several months, from Minnesota Governor Tim Walz calling ICE officers Gestapo to others calling them fascists and Nazis. Democrat leaders have been ignoring objections that they are fueling the violence and criminal responses. It did not matter. It was viewed as good politics that they thought could put them back in the winning column. While Newsom and figures like New Jersey Democrat Senator Cory Booker have called these peaceful protests, we have also seen rocks and Molotov cocktails thrown at police as vehicles were torched. Police have had to use tear gas, flashbang grenades, and rubber bullets to quell these quote-unquote peaceful protesters. There appears little interest in de-escalating on either side. For the Trump administration, images of rioters rioting in celebration around burning cars with Mexican flags are only likely to reinforce the support of the majority of Americans for the enforcement of immigration laws. For Democrats, they've gone all in on opposing ICE and these enforcement operations despite support for roughly 30% of the public. While Democrats have not succeeded in making a convincing political case for opposing immigration enforcement, they may be making a stronger case for federal deployment in increasingly hostile blue cities. Now they are suggesting that in his response, Gavin Newsom's political future is practically non-existent as LA devolves into riots. That's according to social media critics. One user saying Gavin Newsom's odds of clinching the 2028 presidential race are practically non-existent. Across the country, Americans are eyeing California's struggles under his watch, convinced he'd unleash the same chaos nationwide if he ever won the White House. J.D. Vance's 2028 presidential campaign, that's the Twitter handle, which is kind of fun. Gavin Newsom's handling of the LA riots should be considered an in-kind contribution to J.D. Vance. Newsom is providing a lot of ad material for free. Notice how Newsom has no adverse commentary about the rioter. He saves all his venom for American authorities. This is why he has no chance to be president one day. Most Americans tend to believe in this country. And to that point, it is kind of interesting where even New York Times admitting that the Mexican flag has kind of become the rallying cry, if you will. We had that piece yesterday, and I can't remember, I think it was New York Post, where they're saying that it could actually be used as, and I think this term is loaded, but kind of pro-Trump propaganda, where you had the rioters on a scooter waving the Mexican flag as cars burned in the background. But of course, all of this has not stopped the media from pushing their bias, pushing their agenda. We're going to talk about that when we come back from break. We're probably going to table this for just a little bit, read a couple other comments in the next segment. Then, of course, you can comment at any time. Then we're going to table it till the end of the 7 o'clock hour because there's a couple other things we just have to get to, specifically in New York State. That will bring up in the 7 o'clock hour. Then get back to the riots. But you can, at any time, weigh in on the riots. I also have a couple of media updates I think you're going to find really interesting. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We will be right back after this.
Advanced robotics surgery is now available in the Southern Tier. With the Da Vinci Surgical System, experienced local surgeons at UR Medicine St. James and Jones Memorial Hospitals can perform minimally invasive procedures with greater precision.
That means less pain, shorter hospital stays, and a faster recovery so you can get back to life sooner.
Trust the expertise of your local surgeons and the most advanced technology for your surgery.
You no longer need to travel for cutting-edge surgical care.
Visit robotics.urmc.edu for more information.
It's the Watkins Glen Waterfront Festival and Cardboard Boat Regatta June 14th at 2 p.m. It'll be a great time. And you'll be saying H2O to these boat designs. So what are you doing June 14th? Go to the Watkins Glen Cardboard Boat Regatta.
Attention all, it's the 2025 Waterfront Festival and Cardboard Boat Regatta, a day full of fun for all ages. Register at watkinsglen.com/waterfront festival. Hope that boat is sturdy for the big day, June 14th, 2025. Race starts at 2 p.m. On your mark, get set, row.
It's a new season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Let's take a look at some of the kind of talking heads on both sides of the issue. As I said, we're going to talk about the riots a little bit more in this hour. Then we're going to table it for just a little bit. We'll bring it back at the end of the 7 o'clock hour. Just because we have so much more to cover. But Stephen Conson believes that Trump is acting like an authoritarian. And the crisis now rests on what he does. Trump is talking and acting like an authoritarian as he escalates a constitutional clash with California over his migration crackdown. Now, this is from CNN. We know they're biased. That's why I mention it to you. Though, isn't it interesting you decided to use the exact same term that Governor Newsom used to just further emphasize the talking points? Where do they come from? The Democrats provide it to the media, the media provided to the Democrats. But much now depends on whether he's simply talking tough or if he's ready to take an already tense nation across a fateful line in his zeal for strongman rule. In a mind-boggling moment, the President of the United States, the country seen as the world's top steward of democracy for over 80 years, endorsed the arrest of the Democratic governor of the nation's most populous state. Again, if you watch that video, you know it was done not as an authoritarian. He was saying, yeah, sure, why not? Making people like Stephen Collinson, their heads explode. I think it would be a great thing, Trump said. The only convicted felon ever to serve as president. Later, Trump deployed hundreds of active duty Marines to Los Angeles and authorized the arrival of 2,000 more National Guard reservists after a weekend of unrest. Unrest saw clashes with police and burning cars in contained areas of the city. So that is, boy, Stephen Collinson falling for every cliche. So that is the new talking point. That they know they can't really get away with saying peaceful protests any longer. So they use the term unrest, and then, as I mentioned, you say that it's really just small levels of the city, contained areas of the city. California and Los Angeles officials reject Trump's claim that they have lost control. On Monday, law enforcement officers pushed back demonstrators throwing projectiles with flashbangs. Trump's decision to deploy troops despite the opposition of Newsom represent the latest example of his willingness to flex extraordinary executive power, often on questionable grounds, and marked a break with a first term when he was often talked out of his extreme impulses by establishment officials. So the fact that he doesn't have these kind of more Democrat-type Republicans around him, that they're not keeping him in check. This is, I'm not going to go any further, but this is all so cliche. It fits. You can write some of these for yourself ahead of time. And that's exactly what Stephen Collinson is pushing. Now, MSNBC's Glad, I believe is how you pronounce it, Eddie Glad Jr., a Princeton University professor and network contributor. And it is interesting. I don't always think this does the best for universities that are trying to kind of, even though it's kind of misleading, trying to distance themselves from more extreme positions, and yet you have people like the Princeton University professor appearing on MSNBC and saying things like this. Folks have their red meat. Now that they're going to see the spectacle of quote-unquote LA on fire, which is not right, what will happen? Will that activate the ugliness that got him in office in the first place? Will folks now declare why they love him? Because we know that he's always good on the immigration question. This reminds me historically of, if it's not a clear analogy, but when these political factions divide the nation in between slaveholders and slave catchers, when they made everybody with the fugitive slave law, all of us had to, if someone escaped, all of us had to return that particular piece of property to these folks with ICE running around LA, forcing people to make choices. So this dark Trump supporters, the scary Trump supporters, love ICE acting like, and I quote, slave catchers. Dana Bash on CNN said Trump was the arsonist in LA. I know that this is like, he said a promise that he gave on the campaign trail to do whatever he could to deport illegal immigrants. But what he has just posted is, it's basically an arsonist saying you better call the fire department because they've got to come in fast to get the flames out. I mean, that seems like what's going on here. So Trump is the arsonist in LA. All right, we got to take a break. We're going to read your comments. When we come back, we have, as I said, the protests are raging in Manhattan as well. Couple of updates on that, but also that kind of anti-American display, if you will, where the Mexican flag has become the symbol of these protests. We also had Palestinian flags being flown. We're going to talk about that as well. Stay with us. Like I said, we're going to talk a little bit more about it in this hour and then move along at the top of the next hour and then come back to it. So get your comments in. We'll be right back, frankly speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC, or visit our website at WYDCTV.com. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of the program, where we read viewer comments, shall we? Ukraine war is mostly peaceful. So we should walk away and let them settle it peacefully. Thank you. Comment from Mark. If Gavin Newsom can't take care of his own state, how is he qualified to be president? And Trump was asked, what crime did Newsom do? Trump answered, becoming governor was the crime. Yes, he did answer that. But that I think proves a point that he was doing this in a way that was somewhat in jest, but that never works in the media. The media wants to create a scandal out of anything. We're going to talk a little bit about what some of the talking heads, what some in the media have been saying. But quickly, Eric Adams condemns the unacceptable LA anti-ICE riots and warning similar protests in New York City would not be tolerated. But as of yesterday, hundreds of protesters swarmed into lower Manhattan to decry the mass arrest of detainees by ICE. Around 200 demonstrators gathered for an ICE out of NYC protest near Foley Square around 5 p.m. Demonstrators roared on the street demanding no ICE, no KKK, no fascist USA, and free them all. A Daily News reporter witnessed cops taking 5 demonstrators into custody. This is not America. ICE is not saving our community, said Rain Riley, 27, who praised massive anti-ICE protests in Los Angeles. New York City Mayor Eric Adams says he wants to crack down on violence, but this just perpetrates it. I'm so proud of the people of LA. They are so close to my heart. They're what a community should be. Is that what you think of when you see what was happening in the streets, the looting, the attacks on police officers, the destruction? Is that your first thought? They're what a community should be? So protests have kind of copycat protests have begun happening in lower Manhattan. Early Monday, Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch said the NYPD had, at the mayor's direction, developed plans to prepare for any potential anti-President Trump protests in the city with the full resources of the New York City Police Department. So there's an update there. As I mentioned, it's kind of an anti-American display. Some are calling this perfect. Many on the left saying this is perfect propaganda for Trump. They're not happy with that. Rioters called for the destruction of the United States and spat on a flaming American flag while chanting, "Burn it down," in a sickening caught-on-video display as the violent protests entered their 4th day in the city of Angels. We'll talk about that. We're going to table this for just a little bit because I want to get to some New York updates. Also, I just got a couple of quick kind of random stories, if you will, but stories that we cannot overlook as we do today's program. But the big news, Elise Stefanik visiting Albany yesterday. That's what we'll kick off. Well, that's not what we're going to kick off the next hour, but that will come up in the next hour. Okay, we'll read some more of your comments if you send them in here at the top of the next hour. Hard to believe. Yep, as I mentioned, a couple updates on the media quickly. Then we're going to talk about Albany. We also have just a few other quick hits that we want to get to, and then back to the riots. But again, please feel free to weigh in on the riots at any time. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2, mere moments away. Stay with us.
William Mattar has a reputation for being a good guy.
Because I am a good guy.
For being focused on motor vehicle accident cases.
Because I focus on motor vehicle accidents.
For fighting for his clients.
Because I fight for my clients.
If you've been injured in a motor vehicle accident, it matters who you hire. It matters in the experience as well as the results. Call William Mattar. Visit WilliamMattar.com.
Time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tub and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Attention all, it's the 2020 Waterfront Festival and Cardboard Boat Regatta. A day full of fun for all ages. Register at watkinsglen.com/waterfront festival. Hope that boat is sturdy for the big day, June 14th, 2025. Race starts at 2 p.m. On your mark.
Pushed the wrong button for a moment. Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking. Welcome. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. If you are just joining us, you're getting up ready to go to work, whatever the case may be, go to school. We are going to talk more about the LA riots a little bit later on in this hour. We've spent the whole last hour nearly, other than our update on Tiffany Henyard, pretty much the whole first hour on the riots, but we do have a lot more to get to there. But just take a little breather, and we've got other breaking news stories that we need to report on, such as Elise Stefanik visiting Albany. Why could that be? Something to keep in mind. Okay, let's go to one viewer comment before we kick off hour number 2. This is the Student Senior Services Fund section of our program, and this is a correction. I thought someone had sent in a typo, and I changed it for them, which I sometimes do. That was not the case. So I originally believed that the viewer said China is behind the riots, and we had some examples yesterday where there actually is some involvement in some of these far left groups that China has a hand in. We also had reports of other groups, far left groups, involved with these LA riots, but this viewer did not mean China. It was the abbreviation for Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles. Thank you for that. Thank you for correcting me and letting me correct the record. Okay, I mentioned this quickly because I keep saying how I feel, especially since Trump won, the Democrat Party is finding itself on the wrong side, and I hate this term because they use it so often, on the wrong side of history, right? They're taking these stances that I think are very difficult to get behind, such as Harvard's president, right? Saying, I'm going to take a 25% pay cut to stand with the anti-Semitic protesters. Or you got Chris Van Hollen saying that he defends Abrego Garcia. The list can go on and on. Now we have people defending rioting in the street. But this is one that I'll never quite understand. More than 100 House Democrats voted against a Republican-led resolution yesterday that would have condemned the anti-Semitic terrorist attack in Boulder and Colorado's sanctuary state laws. The resolution, introduced by Representative Gabe Evans, cleared the lower chamber in a 280-113 vote, with 75 Democrats joining Republicans to pass the measure. Democrats fumed over language in the resolution expressing gratitude to law enforcement, including ICE personnel, for protecting the homeland. So that was a bridge too far for them. That's what they didn't like, that the resolution had the audacity to show gratitude to law enforcement, including ICE. The National Republican Congressional Committee, the House GOP's campaign arm, charged that Democrats voting against the bill, quote, sided with terrorists over police officers and flat out refused to condemn anti-Semitism. Democrats have become the pro-terrorist, anti-cop, anti-Semitic caucus, and they're proud of it, wrote the NRCC. Hakeem Jeffries slammed Evans as a joke ahead of the vote. Who is this guy? He's not seriously concerned with combating anti-Semitism in America. This is not a serious effort. Anti-Semitism is a scourge on America. It shouldn't be weaponized politically. Evans shot back that the wildly offensive sentiment expressed by Jeffries is why anti-Semitism persists. The left is unserious about finding real solutions, the congressman argued. Condemning terrorism is not a joking matter. Representative Dan Goldman, a Democrat from New York who is Jewish and voted no on the resolution, argued on the House floor that the measure was being put forward to simply score political points. You weren't here, Mr. Evans, last term, but there were about 10 anti-Semitism resolutions that effectively said the same thing solely to score political points. We Jews are sick and tired of being used as pawns. In his floor speech, Evans stated, as a former police officer and Army veteran of the global war on terror, I know how Colorado's radical leftist leaders and laws prioritize illegal immigrants over public safety, allowing anti-Semitic terrorists like Mohammed Sabri Solomon to strike. Also, Americans are starting, and this is why I'm saying I'm on the wrong side of decisions. Americans are starting to learn who that Maryland father, Abrego Garcia, really is. And that's how, again, how the media manipulates you, just like they're saying that there were peaceful protests in LA, and then they started saying, well, just in isolated areas. Now, back when we were originally talking about Abrego Garcia, the headlines were Maryland man sent to El Salvador, wrongly sent to El Salvador. For a while, the favored moniker for Kilmar Abrego Garcia in the media was Maryland father. Abrego Garcia was indeed living in Maryland and was indeed a father. But this wasn't what was most distinctive about him. There are hundreds of thousands of fathers living in the state who aren't illegal immigrants and don't have ties to criminal gangs. Abrego Garcia, of course, is the man who was mistakenly deported to the notorious prison in El Salvador despite a judge's order that he couldn't be deported there. Instead of quickly asking for Abrego Garcia to be sent back, the Trump administration dug in its heels and suffered repeated legal setbacks, including at the Supreme Court. Sensing political opportunity and appalled at the notion of someone living in the U.S. being sent based on no criminal charges to perhaps the most inhumane prison in the Western Hemisphere, Democrats made Abrego Garcia a cause. They inevitably downplayed the drip evidence that he was an unsympathetic character. It emerged that he had been picked up by local police in 2019 at a Home Depot years ago, and the cops suspected that he and his associates were gang members. It emerged that his wife accused him of abusing her. It emerged that he'd been stopped in Tennessee on suspicious circumstances with multiple men in the vehicle. Whether Abrego Garcia was a good guy or a reprobate, a member of MS-13 or his church choir, had no bearing on whether he should have been imprisoned in El Salvador with our active support. The answer to that was no, regardless. But now that the Trump administration has brought him back to the United States and filed charges against him, the Maryland father description has been exposed as inapt. According to the Department of Justice indictment, Abrego Garcia routinely engaged in human smuggling, transporting illegal aliens within the U.S. on more than 100 occasions. The facts set out in the indictment regarding the Tennessee traffic stop was particularly damning. Abrego Garcia's story was that the men in the Suburban had been working construction, and he was bringing them back to Maryland. The men, all lacking identification, had no luggage or construction tools. The vehicle was outfitted with a makeshift third row for passengers in the back, all of which was suspicious enough. What's more, the indictment says license plate tracking data showed that the car hadn't been anywhere close to St. Louis, where he claimed they were coming from in the past year. It had, however, been in the Houston, Texas area, where the prosecutors say the illegal alien passengers had been picked up. The administration will have to prove its charges in court, and if they've been exaggerated in the cause of nailing Abrego Garcia, that will presumably be exposed. The facts matter, and Abrego Garcia never should have been made into a mere symbol. The administration seemed to think keeping him in El Salvador somehow furthered the cause of immigration enforcement. But whether Abrego Garcia stayed there or came back to the U.S. wasn't going to affect deportation efforts one way or another. For their part, Trump's critics, yet again, assume because someone was targeted by the president, he or she must be the figure of righteousness. The fact of the matter is, Abrego Garcia never should have been in the U.S. in the first place. He came here illegally in 2012. Only after he was picked up by police in the aforementioned 2019 stop and put in deportation proceedings did he make a meritless asylum claim. An immigration judge nevertheless granted him a withholding of removal, and Abrego Garcia was permitted to go about his business, which, according to the Justice Department, was smuggling in other illegal immigrants. We'll see more as the case proceeds, but we know enough already to conclude that this isn't a typical or commendable Marylander. But Van Hollen has no regrets over his defense of illegal immigrant Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Oh, I have no regret about defending the Constitution of the United States, and those statements come from individuals who have no respect for due process or the Constitution. The president and his cronies have shown time and again that they're willing to ignore the sacrifice people's constitutional rights to impose their political views on the country. They're doing this across the board. They're abusing their power by bringing these lawsuits against universities and colleges, cracking down on First Amendment rights so that what we have is a lawless president and a lawless administration. And now, finally, we have Abrego Garcia able to be in a court of law, which is all that I've asked for from the beginning. And we have an administration, and you just heard from them. They said they weren't going to bring him back to allow him to have due process. They've had to do that in response to the court's decision and a 9-0 Supreme Court decision. We don't see those very often. So I'm always glad to stand up for people's constitutional rights, and that's what we're doing in this case. So there's a couple of quick updates. Now, another update. I mentioned to you the story yesterday. One of our viewers texted in and said, Terry who? Yes, Terry Moran, who was suspended at ABC News for tweeting out some pretty vile stuff about Stephen Miller and Trump. ABC News staffers are mad. That's not the exact word that the New York Post uses, but we'll say mad at Terry Moran. And some are actually calling for him to be fired after he went after Stephen Miller as a world-class hater. Moran's diatribe on social media over the weekend, which he has since deleted, was condemned by ABC News executives for lacking objectivity and impartiality. Yes, they proved their bias in their hatred time and time again. If he would have just kept this to himself and reported in such a biased manner, he would have been fine. But the fact that he put it all out there for the world to see on social media was too much for ABC News, who is already fighting the battle, losing credibility, proving the bias time and time again. He was suspended pending further evaluation. Many of his colleagues believing the punishment did not go far enough. One insider saying he should be fired. People inside are mad at Terry for screwing things up for the network. Everything that Trump has said about the media, and they are haters and they are biased, Moran proved it to be true. Check your bias at the door and only deal with the facts. Well, and that's the point. Terry Moran proved Trump's point, and the point that conservatives have been making for decades, that the media is biased. They've been putting it out there for the world to see. That's why they've lost credibility. That's why they've lost viewers. Firing Moran may serve Deborah O'Connell, president of ABC News Group, who is in the throes of trimming the budget amid larger cuts at Disney. A source with knowledge that a journalist with Moran's level of experience, namely a senior-level correspondent who has covered the White House and co-anchored Nightline, likely makes between $600,000 and $900,000 a year. That could save the network a lot of money, and she would demonstrate to the White House that ABC takes the issue seriously. So there's an update behind the scenes. Allegedly, sources are saying people are not very happy. Terry Moran proving, once again, the bias in the mainstream media. One person behind the scenes said Terry has always had a high opinion of his opinions. That's one great way of putting it. All right, we got to take a break. I see some comments coming in. Oh, great news, Ken. Climate Fact Bob is on the case. He's got a response for you here when we come back. A couple other media updates, then we're going to get to Elise Stefanik. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Scamming seniors is a huge problem today. Worldwide, seniors lost $4.8 billion to scammers in 2024. The Steuben County Office for the Aging is here to help. Come to our seminar, Recognizing and Avoiding Financial Scams and Identifying Elder Abuse, Monday, June 18th at the Centenary United Methodist Church in Bath from 1:30 to 4 p.m. Learn how to identify scams, how to protect yourself, and fraud watch tips. Come to Centenary United Methodist Church in Bath, New York from 1:30 to 4 p.m. on June 18th. Learn more. Go to steubencountiny.gov/235.
Start Adrenaline Rush. Start exploring the paddock. Start a weekend you'll never forget. It's Salem's 6 Hours of the Glen, the ultimate start to summer. Get your tickets and secure your camping spot at theglen.com today.
Attention all, it's the 2025 Waterfront Festival and Cardboard Boat Regatta, a day full of fun for all ages. Register at watkinsglen.com/waterfront festival. Hope that boat is sturdy for the big day, June 14, 2025. Race starts at 2 p.m. On your mark, get set, row.
Name something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
If you or one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Let's go to the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program where we read viewer comments. Steuben Senior Services Fund, empowering seniors to age at home. Call 607-2298. Let me try that again. 607-664-2298 or go online to SteubenSeniorServicesFund.org. Comment from Sergeant Dave. Good morning, Sergeant Dave. I hate to say it, but I keep thinking of the movie Red Dawn. Do we want criminals to control the country? Evidently, the Democrats are pushing for it. Trump derangement at its best. Thank you very much. And now, as promised, normally it's Climate Fact Friday with Bob. Well, today it is Climate Fact Tuesday with Bob. And he said, good morning from Climate Bob. Ken, thanks for the great question about wildfires and the pollution versus fossil fuels. We will focus on CO2. A wildfire produces 7.5 to 22 metric tons of CO2 per acre, depending on the fuel, grass, brush, or forest. So far, the Canadian wildfires have put 640 million metric tons of CO2 into our atmosphere. Here in the U.S., we put around 400 million metric tons of CO2 from transportation per year into the atmosphere. Ken, I hope this helps clear up some of your concerns. Have a great day, Bob. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. I like the back and forth this morning. Quickly, the Washington Post media critic Eric Wemple has reflected on his own failure yesterday in scrutinizing press coverage of Joe Biden and his cognitive decline, particularly after the infamous "Where's Jackie" gaffe. Do you like how everybody's now doing this mea culpa? Oh, I know I should have done more. The reason I mention this is because of Terry Moran. I mean, they just continue to lose credibility. That was an unforced error. That was him going out on the line to prove their bias. But we saw their bias in real time. And now why they're doing this and they're admitting their mistake, so they can go on and say, well, that's why we have to put extra scrutiny on Trump like we should have on Biden. It's so that they can report with more bias against Trump, because we know for 4 years there was no coverage of a mentally declining president, which Newt Gingrich said yesterday could be the biggest scandal in American history. I want to thank Newt and so many others for watching, frankly speaking, and using my line that I've been saying for over a year. So I appreciate it. No problem. I don't need to be cited. Never need to be cited. I'm just glad to spread the word, but he said it's the greatest scandal in American history, presidential history. But now they could ignore that, and now they focus, as we see, laser-like on Trump. As the legacy media continues to face a reckoning over how it handled the coverage of Biden, Wemple wrote a scathing piece calling out news organizations for not admitting any errors with the headline, "Did legacy media fail in its Biden coverage? Not if you ask them." In his lengthy critique, Wemple revisited an episode from a September 2022 event where Biden called for Representative Jackie Walorski, who had died just weeks earlier in a car accident. Biden previously released a statement acknowledging her death after it happened, and the event he attended honored her memory. "Jackie, are you there? Where's Jackie?" in the viral moment. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre defended the president at the time, saying that she was simply top of mind. "It's time to turn this exercise on my own byline," Wemple wrote. "The Where's Jackie episode was my cue to start hammering mainstream outlets for not pushing on this story. Never happened. That was a failure." He noted, as Fox News Digital did at the time, that neither CNN or MSNBC offered any coverage of the Where's Jackie comment, while acknowledging some in the press like Axios' Alex Thompson and Wall Street Journal's Annie Linsky and Sobhan Hughes for their pre-debate reporting that shed light on Biden's cognitive decline. Wemple knocked the media for broadly lacking the vigor to get to the bottom of it sooner. Yeah, there was those few that reported on it, but remember, the media turned on them and said they were doing a disservice to their business. White House coverage must involve more than observing the president in acting and writing up analysis pieces about his comings and goings. Jake Tapper even admitting that when he was promoting this book, saying, well, Biden's handlers were saying he was fine. So taking what they said as gospel, do they afford that same honor and privilege to the Trump administration of saying, yes, everything you tell us is the gospel truth? No. But that's what Jake Tapper's excuse was. But going back to what Wempel said, it needs to include a muckraking component detailing behind-the-scenes strategies, conflicts, and debates over all manner of issues, particularly those relating to the president's mental acuity. An adjacent question relates to whether Biden himself was fully abreast of and in charge of day-to-day decisions. But again, I believe the media is now using this as an excuse so they can report further on Trump. Quote, and it's on these fronts that major media organizations fell short. Fell short isn't a strong enough term. Though Biden's declining faculties were clear to all, they never ignited one of those glorious mainstream media investigative frenzies that colonizes television and radio broadcasts. A few souls are undergoing a pat-down, said Wempel. Okay. On that note, when we come back, Elise Stefanik visiting Albany. What does it all mean? We're going to have a clip from Will Barclay introducing her. Then we'll go to a quote from House GOP Leadership Chair Elise Stefanik. Many speculating that she is going to run. No, we're also going to hear from Phil Palmisano. Expecting to run for governor, but so many people, and I have this conversation almost daily, saying if she's going to do it, we have to do this soon. We're already so far behind the 8 ball from when Lee Zeldin officially declared. Though the nice thing about Lee Stefanik, if you trust that poll, she's already starting out better if she declared today than Lee Zeldin did after all that campaigning and on Election Day. He lost by about 6 points. According to recent polls, Elise Stefanik would be down just, I think, 1 point to Governor Hochul, and that's without her even officially declaring. After that, after the New York issues, we're going to go back to the LA riot, so feel free to weigh in on that. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Frankly Speaking, Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs.
Your Social Security disability claim has been denied, and you don't understand why. Your physical or emotional problems make it impossible for you to work. I'm Peter Gorton of Lockman & Gorton. Don't give up. Together, we'll file your appeal to give you the best chance to win the benefits you deserve.
For a free consultation, call Lockman & Gorton, toll free 1-800-698-0567.
Attention all, it's the 2025 Waterfront Festival and Cardboard Boat Regatta, a day full of fun for all ages. Register at watkinsglen.com/waterfront festival. Hope that boat is sturdy for the big day, June 14, 2025. Race starts at 2 p.m. On your mark, get set, row.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Let's get right to it. Elise Stefanik visited Albany yesterday, and she and Assembly and Senate Republicans called out Albany Democrats and their failure to deliver in this legislative session. Right now, we're going to hear from Will Barclay introduce Elise Stefanik, and then what we'll do is play a little bit of Elise Stefanik, or we'll read, a little bit of Elise Stefanik's statement. Also, we're going to hear from Phil Palmisano on this topic as well. So let's go. Hold on, I'm getting everything out of order there. There we go. Let's go to the Will Barclay. I'm trying to find it. Here we go.
Good morning to everybody. I want to thank the leader for hosting this event and appreciate the partnership that he and his conference have with the Assembly Republicans. And I obviously want to thank my colleagues from the Assembly for being here this morning too. Rob mentioned it a little bit. I just want to, I think it's worth bearing and worth repeating, which I've done at multiple press conferences, but I just want to talk a minute about the state budget, because it really is the epitome of what the Democrats have done to New York State. First of all, it doesn't always get a lot of coverage. Maybe it's not all that important, but taken in context with all the other messes the Democrats have made of New York, it was the latest budget we've had in 15 years. It spends almost $250 billion. And when you talk about trillion in any budget, even the federal budget, you know you're talking about a lot of money. And this is a statistic I always find maybe the most interesting. It's $77 billion more than it was 5 years ago. And I dare any of our Democratic colleagues, to look New York voters in the eye and say, are we really $77 billion better off than we were 5 years ago? I'm going to surmise most New Yorkers would say absolutely not. Instead of doing what they're doing down here, we should be leading the nation as opportunity and for quality of life. Instead, we lead the nation in unaffordability, we lead the nation in crime, and maybe most tragic of all, we lead the nation in out-migration. It's so bad that I think in 2030, and Congressman, you're probably very acutely aware of this, we may lose 2 congressional seats. Now, one-party rule in Albany, what do? They're going to blame it on Trump. They blame everything on Trump. So I just want to give you some statistics that I brought here that were in effect before Trump took office, and until we get change in New York State, probably will remain in effect. New York rankings. I always find these as factual information, hard to dispute, hard to say it's Republican spin. American Legislative Exchange Council, New York ranks 50th in the country for economic outlook, 49th in absolute domestic migration, with a cumulative total loss of almost, listen to this, almost 2 million residents between 2013 and 2023. New York's the Tax Foundation 2025 State Tax Competitiveness Index, New York overall rating, big surprise, 50th, last in the country. The Mercatus Center of George Mason University, second in the U.S. for the most regulations, with over 300,000 regulations. Chief Executive Magazine 2024 Best and Worst State for Business, New York ranks 49th. And certainly not last, but certainly not least, 2024 Thumbtack Small Business Friendliness Survey, New York got an overall score of F. And I wasn't a great student, but I usually avoided the F rating. So our next speaker, we have someone who is of great stature, that has obviously cares very much about New York State and has some ideas of how maybe we ought to change this state. Congresswoman Elise Stefanik was elected in 2014, 30 years old, very impressive. And the first youngest woman elected congressperson, correct?
At the time.
At the time, really very, very impressive. You know when someone's that successful early on, very often they're going to have a very bright career in politics. And certainly Elise has done that. She became the 4th highest ranking in a relatively quick time, the 4th highest ranking Republican in the House. And as we all know, President Trump appointed her to be UN ambassador. But to Elise's great credit, unfortunately, maybe not for her career, but her credit, believing in what we have to do in this country with Republican values and issues, she remained in the House, which I think is a great tribute and really shows what type of character the Congresswoman is. So I think she has some ideas about the future of New York State, and we certainly hope her star continues to burn bright. She's been great for the North Country, close to me. She's been great for New York State, but I think also great for this country. So without further ado, Elise Stefanik.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. From Assembly Minority Leader Will Barclay. Now, Elise Stefanik saying right after that, I'm honored to join Leader Ort and Leader Barclay to meet with Republican Senate and Assembly conferences for the last week of legislative session. Another year, another failed, radical, reckless agenda and legislative session in New York State, passed by single-party Democrat rule led by the worst governor in America, Kathy Hochul. Now, a lot of people are taking away that comment and suggesting that that was essentially the shot heard around the world. That was the beginning, perhaps, of the Elise Stefanik run for governor. She has not officially declared. Led by the worst governor in America, Kathy Hochul. But Elise Stefanik continued. Kathy Hochul and the far-left New York Democrats have once again put New York last with a massive, bloated $254 billion budget that is anti-worker, anti-family, anti-farm, anti-small business, and anti-law enforcement. From job-killing regulations proposed, like the insane 700-cow farm cap that we talked so extensively about last week, to pro-criminal policies that make our streets, communities, and campuses less safe. This legislative session continues New York down the path to catastrophe, further exasperating the affordability crisis and crime crisis. And of course, this is all on top of the $10 million taxpayer-funded slush fund to bail out Tish James for her criminal activities. Kathy Hochul's radical, far-left Democrat agenda is driving businesses and hard-working families out of the state. Enough is enough. New Yorkers deserve better. It is time for new leadership in New York State. Well, tell me that doesn't sound like someone that's running for governor. She has not officially declared, but that sounds like a gubernatorial campaign speech to me, if I've ever heard one. So that was Elise Stefanik yesterday. She blasted the radical agenda, calling Governor Hochul the worst governor in America. And I don't want to continue to read. We got a couple waves coming in out there on the street today, even though the weather's a little rough. But obviously, this is the signal for many people that Stefanik is going to run. If you recall, last week she was at the North Country Republican gathering, on Staten Island, saying, "Are we ready to fire Kathy Hochul next year in the state of New York?" So this is very interesting. The New York Times said, "Is Stefanik running?" She attacks Hochul as worst governor. Representative Elise Stefanik made a rare visit to Albany on Monday to outline a vision for New York that may form the basics of a Republican campaign platform next year. In recent months, the New York State Capitol has been a stage for Governor Hochul to sell an agenda she believes will win her re-election next year. Yes, sending you things like checks, etc. It's also been a key backdrop in the drama surrounding who will challenge her. The latest to do so was Representative Elise Stefanik, who sounded less interested in doing the president's bidding and more intent on carving her own political path. She blasted Ms. Hochul as the worst governor in America, whose pro-criminal agenda made New Yorkers less safe by putting violent criminals and illegals first and law-abiding New Yorkers last. And that's an important message because Lee Zeldin was so successful. Again, I know not winning, but was so successful because he ran on public safety. Stefanik, a 6-term congresswoman, castigated the legislative actions of New York Democrats as anti-worker, anti-family, anti-farm, anti-small business, anti-manufacturing, and anti-law enforcement. The remarks appear to preview Ms. Stefanik's campaign themes if she runs, but they also misrepresented Ms. Hochul's views in claiming that Democrats had rejected common sense reforms to the bail laws and refused to lower taxes. Well, that's the New York Times doing Governor Hochul's bidding. No surprise, because that is not the case at all. But worth mentioning, well, just because, we're talking about it, so your thoughts, Will Stefanik run, did that sound like a gubernatorial speech? Did that get you jazzed up this morning? Because another name, and we're going to tell you what Phil Palmisano had to say about that issue here in just a moment. But another name being thrown around is Mike Lawler. He's a Republican. He's a more moderate Republican. He continues, and you've heard my beliefs on this, my comments on this. He continues to hold town hall events. And again, the media presents them, even though he does them, there's always some negative light they portray him in. The last time they had to drag somebody out disturbing the town hall, and they say, an older lady dragged out by police. This time, the author of the piece who went to the town hall by Mike Lawler was outraged because they could come in and listen to the event. They could record it and take pictures of attendees and of Congressman Lawler, but the reporter was prohibited from photographing any of Lawler's congressional staff members who were working at the town hall. Quote, here I was, a member of the press, who had obtained press credentials to a public event in a public building. It appeared to me that the government was restricting my First Amendment rights to gather the news. I objected. So now it's a negative because he's asking you essentially, hey, you can do anything you want, just don't get my staff involved, because it is a very dangerous time for congressional offices, for staffers. So just out of pure safety issues, could you not bring my staffers into this? Because if you recall, that's one of the criticisms I've had of town halls in general. They're not being done in good faith. People just want their congressperson to hold them so they can scream at them, yell at them, not have a conversation. And it puts the staff who have to work these events in harm's way. So he's just saying you can have every other aspect of this. Please don't take photos of our staff. And what, of course, did he do right away? Taking pictures of the staff. So he was sent home from the town hall because he took photos of Lawler's staff. So this person, and this is typical media, by the way, making the story all about themselves. Yes, this piece is all about how they got kicked out because they're the biggest defender of free speech. I don't see what Lawler has to gain on this. I think it's a very reasonable request to say, hey, could you please not take pictures of my staffers? They have nothing to do with this. But nope. Took a nice photo of one of the staffers just so they could be thrown out and be a hero, because remember, in journalism school, if you go after Democrats, or if you go after Republicans, you are lauded as a hero. You are praised as a hero. Look at Woodward and Bernstein. So this person wanting to take up the mantle of being the strongest defender of the First Amendment, they were chomping at the bit when they heard that one small request because they wanted to be the martyr. They wanted to show that they really cared. And while doing it, of course, being a negative on a Republican. It all worked out for them. Okay, we got to take a short break. We are going to wrap things up on New York when we come back, and then back to the LA riots. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
When you're on, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
I slept in a lot of different rooms, different beds, but none of them really felt like mine. I spent 14 years in foster care, mostly in group homes. And I never had much stuff because I always had to be ready to move. Why get things if you just have to let them go?
There are more than 100,000 children in foster care waiting to be adopted. The Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption is working to help find them a forever family and a permanent home of their own.
Now I have my own room with walls that tell my story. I love hanging out in here. I play dress up with my sisters and I sing and make videos. But the best part? Knowing I'll always have a place to go and a family that loves and supports me.
If you have room in your home or your heart, see how you can help at davethomasfoundation.org.
Attention, it's the 2025 Waterfront Festival and Cardboard Boat Regatta. A day full of fun for all ages. Register at watkinsglen.com/waterfront festival. Hope that boat is sturdy for the big day, June 14th, 2025. Race starts at 2 p.m. On your mark.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to our Student Senior Services Fund section of the program where we read viewer comments. A viewer writes in, just a suggestive speculation. Given the behavior of Democrats, would it be safe to assume that people who vote Democrat are more inclined than Republicans to break the law? Someone's being a little provocative this morning. Thank you for your question. I'll throw it out there if anybody wants to answer. So quickly, just after that press conference, I don't want to skip what something that Phil Palmisano had to say because he was a part of that press conference with Lee Stefanik too. He said, under Kathy Hochul and one-party Democrat rule, nothing has gone right for the people of New York. From bail reform to green energy and electrification mandates, New York is on the wrong path. All you need to do is look at our nation-leading out-migration numbers to see people are fed up with the way New York is being run. Even with all this, Democrats are spending the last handful of days of session doing nothing but passing bills to please their progressive base, instead of working to make New York a safer, more affordable place to live. Our New York residents and businesses are facing an affordability, public safety, and quality of life crisis. Unfortunately, in this state, no matter how good an idea is, it has no chance of becoming law unless it was put forth by a Democrat. This isn't how government is supposed to operate. We should look at a bill and vote on them based on their merit, not based on which political party they originated from. I'm calling on my Democrat Assembly colleagues to finally put politics aside and work with our side of the aisle to make New York a better place for all. New Yorkers deserve nothing less. Thank you to Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Now, New York did move. Albany moved to allow terminally ill people to die on their own terms. A bill permitting so-called medical aid in dying passed the state legislature and will now head to Governor Hochul's desk for a signature. Interesting little irony there, my mistake. We'll see. She's not signaled where she stands on this. The New York Post editorial board saying that she is the last line of defense to kill this monstrous assisted suicide bill. The state Senate was rushing to vote late Monday on this bill, so it was up to Governor Hochul to wield her veto and prevent a disgraceful mistake. Again, the New York bill breaks new ground or sinks to a newer low. All 11 other states require a waiting period before you get your suicide meds prescription filled. It's 15 days in Oregon, but could be less than 24 hours in New York. The Empire State bill also has no real mechanism for tracking how many deaths it brings. Some commissioner is supposed to review a sample of patient medical records and produce a yearly report. Anyway, she is the last line of defense. Okay, when we come back, wrapping up our discussion. Oh, do we have time for this? No. But there is a piece of the Daily News. Andrew Cuomo has released a op-ed why he is the best candidate for mayor. Listen to this, though. We will make New York City safe and restore a sense of order by hiring an additional 5,000 police officers, increasing the size of the police force by 15%, while cutting overtime in half to pay for it. Within the first 30 days of taking office, I pledge to remove all of the homeless out of the subway on a daily basis to get the help they need. We did it during COVID, and we will do it again. Seems like he's going to be spending a lot. Oh, how about this? I have fought for New Yorkers all my life. It is what I do. It is who I am. This is former Governor Andrew Cuomo. Quote, we got through COVID together because we are New York tough and because we unified and we looked out for one another. And I'll be New York tough when it comes to dealing with and standing up to President Trump. So let me dissect that real quick before we go to break. I have fought for New Yorkers all my life, not those in nursing homes, though. Not during COVID with those in nursing homes, right? Didn't fight for those New Yorkers, or didn't fight for upstate New Yorkers when he threatened to take our respirators away at the height of, or at the very beginning, I guess you would say, of COVID. Continuing, we got through COVID together because we are New York tough. Again, not those in nursing homes. Not those as you put COVID positive patients in nursing homes with that edict. And because we unified and we looked out for one another. Did you look out for the residents, the most vulnerable among us in nursing homes? I don't want to dissect his whole op-ed, but Governor former governor, disgraced governor, Andrew Cuomo, saying why I'm the best candidate for mayor. Oh, by the way, for our I know I keep saying I got to go. For all of our hunters out there in New York hunters harvested more deer in 2024 and 2025, but still below the 5-year average. Hunters in New York harvested an estimated 223,304 deer during the 2024-2025 hunting season, according to the State Department of Environmental Conservation. That include 122,427 antlered bucks and 100,877 antlerless deer. There you go. All right, when we come back, wrapping up our discussion on the LA riots, stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
William Mattar has earned a reputation for being a straight shooter.
Because I am a straight shooter.
For being honest.
Here's what we're willing to pay.
Because I am honest.
For winning a lot.
Because we win a lot.
If you've been injured in a motor vehicle accident, it matters who you hire. It matters in the experience as well as the results. Call William Mattar. Visit WilliamMattar.com.
Attention, it's the 2025 Waterfront Festival and Cardboard Boat Regatta. A day full of fun for all ages. Register at WatkinsGlen.com/Waterfront Festival. Hope that boat is sturdy for the big day, June 14th, 2025. Race starts at 2 p.m. On your mark, get set, row.
Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So many comments coming in right here at the end of the program. We may not get to reading too much more about the riots. Let's go to the viewer comments during the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program. Steuben Senior Services Fund, where we have an opportunity to read viewer comments. They're empowering seniors to age at home. Comment from Mark: I believe the Democrats are backing these riots. Ironically, it's blowing up in their face, making them look bad. Very much the case. Comment from a different viewer: I think the Olympics should be moved from Los Angeles because they have shown that if protests break out, they will refuse to protect Americans and world visitors. Comment from a different viewer in reference to Cuomo: yeah, so I guess Cuomo will put the homeless in nursing homes among the law-abiding people who live there. That would seem par for the course. Ken writes in: please thank Climate Bob for his input. So there you go. Thanks, Bob. So let's take some assumptions based on Bob's numbers. Current Canada fires 600 million tons of CO2, which will certainly grow to more than 800 million tons. California LA fire must have dumped at least 400 million tons. Canada fires 2 years ago must have dumped another 800 million tons. If all U.S. cars dump 400 million tons of CO2 a year, those 3 fires alone account for 5 years of internal combustion emission for all cars in the U.S. If the climate agenda, start that again. If the climate activists' agenda is to save the earth and not just to eliminate fossil fuels, wouldn't they be screaming from the highest mountain that we need to mobilize more forces to stop these fires as soon as they start and to work hard to stop them from starting in the first place? Thank you, Ken. Appreciate that. We were talking about the optics of the LA rioters in that revolting anti-American display, spitting on the American flag. We saw the American flag lit on fire. We've seen attacks on police officers. Even was it the New York? Yeah, I think this was New York Times, saying the Mexican flag becomes a potent LA protest symbol. Trump officials have cast demonstrators waving the Mexican flag as insurrectionists. But for many protesters who are Mexican American, the flag represents pride in their heritage. So they're presenting, if that's the optics they want to go with, I know they're trying to spin it Obviously trying to spin it because they know that the optics of this, even some on the left saying this is perfect propaganda for Trump. When you see the guy on the scooter, little motorcycle driving around, a car on fire, waving the Mexican flag as fireworks go off, that is, when it comes to a PR move, it's a PR disaster for the rioters. So that's why the New York Times, always doing their diligence to go after the Trump administration, is suggesting that this is a potent LA protest symbol, that it is a positive. Now, one of the people arrested, and I think this is a good point, some of the illegal immigrants detained in the ICE raids that sparked these riots are convicted criminals with rap sheets for sexual assault, gang activity, and even murder, including a Vietnamese national convicted of carrying out a mass shooting at a high school graduation party that shocked Southern California. We've been telling you about some of these people that were arrested during the original ICE raid, but that's who they're protesting for. That's the point. That's who they are defending. Now, National Review's Jim Garrity said, in the minds of the progressive Democrats who run LA and California, ICE efforts to arrest and deport those who have entered the country illegally are unpopular among their constituents and therefore must be illegitimate. Indeed, Democrats and large swaths of the media insist LA would not be beset by so much widespread violence and unrest if ICE had never tried to enforce immigration laws. That is, LA is so primed for violence, such a powder keg of anarchic, that's not the right word, anarchy, malcontents, that the U.S. government must simply throw up its hands and concede that it cannot enforce immigration law there. Then again, that's how Governor Gavin Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass approach governing. When a task is too difficult, they just don't even make an attempt. Now, when we come back, a few last things to wrap up. I see your comments getting in. Get your last second comments in so I can read them before we wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on Big Fox.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Attention, it's the 2025 Waterfront Festival and Cardboard Boat Regatta. A day full of fun for all ages. Register at watkinsglen.com/waterfront festival. Hope that boat is sturdy for the big day, June 14, 2025. Race starts at 2 p.m. On your mark, get set, row.
Big Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back. We got a lot of comments to read through during the Student Senior Services Fund section of our program. Okay, Rick writes in. Now King Donald wants to have Newsom arrested. This is brought to you by a 34-time convicted felon. This should be good. Why is there always turmoil, hate, and unrest when Trump is around? There's a small protest going on, and he sends in the National Guard, and poof, big problem. All I can say is when the goon squad heads up to the Capitol on January 6, 2029, because Trump doesn't want to leave again, there better be National Guard troops and the military on standby. The ICE garbage is probably no more organized than the Doge sweeps. They are just like Trump. Pull an idea out of you-know-where and go with it. People are mad, and I don't blame them. Send the bad guys back where they came from. But do something to get the homegrown idiots that are out there under control also. And to make matters worse, Dr. Kennedy removes 17 members of the CDC advisory board that recommends vaccination schedules for COVID, flu, etc. We're doomed. It'll take a while to undo this mess, and not even 6 months into it. I've said about enough today. I'll close with there is nothing but constant chaos, unrest, and mistrust in this country and around the world. Some people find that attractive. If that's you, you're sick. Imagine where Trump will have us in another year. Hope we have a better day tomorrow. Comment from a different viewer. Senator John Fetterman is the only Democrat with sense. He has spoken truth to power. And what a great term. That's exactly what he's done. Spoke truth to power. And that's why they'll hate him. That's why they're questioning his mental health. Comment from a different viewer. If you don't like America, then leave. Those punks who spit on the flag and wave their own country's flag need to leave, and President Trump will oblige them. Finally, I think I missed the purpose of Trump sending in the troops. This is from a different viewer. Remember Seattle? If troops had been sent in by Joel and Joe, or maybe I see why he acted quickly and sent a message. Thank you very much. An LA news anchor claims people are, quote, having fun watching cars burn. Riots are relatively peaceful. It could turn very, very volatile if we move law enforcement in there in the wrong way and turn what is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn into a massive confrontation and altercation between officers and demonstrators. Now, is that how you typically spend a weekend? Having fun watching cars being burnt and riots taking place? That is Jory Rand, a Los Angeles news anchor at ABC 7. Correspondent Tim Caputo, who is reporting live from the scene, also warned about the fine line. Police had to walk to keep the peace but not provoke the crowd. So it's fun watching cars burn, riots, peaceful. The New York Post editorial board. Democrats don't seem to care about the criminal rap sheets of the illegal migrant ICE has been rounding up in L.A. Apparently, convicted sex abusers, drug dealers, and gang members all still somehow have a sacrosanct right to stay in the U.S. And ICE efforts to take them into custody, per Karen Bass on Friday, quote, sow terror in our communities and disrupt basic principles of safety in our city. Funny. Andrew Cuomo's statement the same day here in NYC also complained that ICE, quote, sow terror in neighborhoods and erode the sense of safety for all residents. Maybe they've hired the same consultants. Thing is, criminals sow terror every day, and ICE's LA targets had done hard time for crimes like cocaine trafficking, willful cruelty to a child, and sexual battery. Many of the detainees also had gang affiliations and or convictions for assault. And again, none were in this country legally. They're the kind of menaces America must have in mind when they tell pollsters they support Trump's deportation efforts. Yep, and this all boils down to, because we're nearly out of time, but Americans have every right to expect their safety to be the top for their elected officials. But that's not how California politicians nor New York politicians see their jobs. Forget about coordinating with the feds to protect the innocent. Far more important to answer to the far left professional activists and coordinate your anti-Trump talking points while you protect violent criminals from the awful injustice of being sent back to their home country. So how Democrats defend the worst migrants and blame Trump for riot orders up by the left. As that one viewer said, Senator Fetterman breaks with Democrats and condemns the riots, saying this is anarchy and that he unapologetically stands for free speech, peaceful demonstrations, and immigration. But that is why they're questioning his mental health, because he has the audacity to go against the party's line. But it's a small part of LA is the latest media refrain to minimize the violent mob. Their motives are so transparent they are laughable. The media want to diminish and distract, but for the rest of us, reality goes on. And the LA protests have inched Elon Musk a little bit back into President Trump's favor, as he has been going after the protesters as well. That does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you for all the comments. Thanks for all the great discussion. I do appreciate it, as always. And join us every weekday morning starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV Big Fox. We will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early. I look forward to it already.
Hi, this is Tom Witzel, owner of Hesselson's in Amara Heights. At Hesselson's, we care about your well-being and overall health, whether it's relieving stress, muscle recovery, increasing circulation, or just revitalizing the body. Hesselson's now has 2 complete line of infrared and traditional rock saunas in our new and expanded showroom. Come in today and see why owning a sauna is the start of your new healthy lifestyle. Hesselson's is still locally and family-owned and operated in Amara Heights. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.